Thomas Ta from BC Hydro. He's their performance assessment manager. He's got more than 20 years as an engineer. He's been actively researching and actively building strategic asset management tools. And if you take a look at a few of these things that are bulleted here on the screen, these are some great concepts. I mean, imagine a performance radar that alerts you to problems as they're appearing on the horizon before they actually get here, or asset health index that indices that tell you the true health and the true age of your asset, not their chronological or nameplate value. So, Thomas, we're grateful that you came along to share your experiences. Take it away.
Thank you, Jesse. So I'm going to give you our experience that we went through as in BCTC, and also prior to joining BCTC, it was part of the BC Hydro. It's part of the BCTC. Look at the transmission side. So our objective at the time when we do this one in here is we want to turn the data into information to assist us in decision making. We know utility has lots of data, and by no means the data are in any case are perfect, or we have a quality data issues, completeness and integrity and so on. But we do have a mass amount of data, and how we're going to take that data and turn that into information. We want to provide an asset-centric view of the whole system so that we can manage in terms of give asset management executive and stakeholders the similar view. We want to provide a consistent method of assessing the asset health and able to predict the requirement investment level. This is a key thing for us, and mostly driven by the regulators. About 8 years ago, when we first started at the transmission side, we submitted the first revenue requirement to the regulator. They look at it and they said, this is what you want, but it's not necessarily what the system needs. So you haven't proved to us that what the system needs, and we don't know what is your system needs either. But just on the safe side, we're going to cut 15% of what you're asking for. And from this point on, if you don't prove to us that's what the system needs, we continue to cut 10% per year, every year from now on. So that's a very tall order for us, and to look at it and say, how do we able to prove that's what the system needs? So that's where we turn into asset management and do that. Again, when the decision making comes, we want to provide a transparent and consistent information to the regulator, so we cannot be flip-flop and losing credibility from there. The approach that we went through is we adopted the one system, one asset, one view, and most of you probably heard about the one source of truth, a lot of different data versions within the company, and how do we manage that. Marc-Andre talking about the 80-20 rules. That's what we adopted at the beginning. We want to reverse the trend of 80% of the time gather the data. We want to make sure that 80% of the time that we use expertise to analyze the data and to help us make decisions. And we'll show you later that we actually achieved more than 80%. So it's a lot better than 80-20 rules. Again, with the mass amount of data, you cannot present it in terms of the data tables or databases. It has to be visualized so that it has to come to you or notify you instead of you go looking for it. So the graphical view that we approach from the top level down right to the individual asset view. So we run into a lot of challenges, and I'm sure that you will see some of the challenges is similar to what you have. We're shifting from the resource base from work management to asset management. So in the past, we do a lot of work management, make sure that our crews are busy given the resources of what we have, instead of looking at from the system perspective and say, given the system and the status of our system and the direction that we want to move in, how do we manage it in the life cycle of the asset. Transparency and repeatability is another issue. A lot of our decision making is subjective analysis based on the expert knowledge. Those things go to the next part is knowledge. 80 seasons is not sustainable. Our staff, you can look at 30, 40 years of experience that involving right at the beginning of the construction of the asset and up to now. But our asset has longer life than any of us, and our system has even longer life yet. So in order to sustain and capture the knowledge base, we want to make sure that we have a tool that's able to do that. So how to communicate is number 4, for example. If you don't have a data and you seem to tend to make a decision that you don't have a lot of basis on that, so it's hard to communicate to upper level. Data quality or access to the data is an issue. We have, like I mentioned, poor data quality. But more than that, we have undocumented legacy system, and also the way that we define in the past, it's really causing a lot of problem for us. So when we go to this one in here, we have to look at the data in general, look at it from the data producer to data consumer and data regulator and governance, to regulate that type of thing. So once you have it clearly defined, you will reducing multiple versions of databases or informations. Silo structures is one. The way that we structure, we don't have a broad view. Our asset manager looking at whether it's circuit breaker or transformers or disconnects, but it's very hard for them to look at the whole system view. So that's the way that we structure our system. Accountability, lack of performance metrics and targets. How do we know we perform to the point that's expected? When we put the system in service, when we have a failure on that system, do we meet the target? How do we know that? So those types of things that kind of help us to be more clarify what we're doing and whether we're meeting the target or not. Okay, so the way that we want to achieve the effective asset management is to matching performance with expectation, actual performance with the target. And like we mentioned, we adopted the one system, one asset, one view. So the approach that we go through is we want to use a system view top-down approach. No asset should be analyzed in isolation. We have a system that everything connected together. So when you look at this one in here, now you can determine the criticality of your asset. Now that you can look at the transformer in one location compared to the circuit breaker in another location, and so on. What we found is we have a fairly strong asset analysis, but what we lack of is the system analysis. So we want to create a strong linkage between system analysis and asset analysis. And by doing this one in here, we'll enable the asset managers and business manager focus in the same direction.